Welcome to today's Explainer. Man, if you've even glanced at the headlines today, you know we are right in the thick of a remarkably heavy and honestly pretty diverse 24-hour news cycle. From the shifting geopolitical sands in the Middle East and some sudden massive political upheaval in Europe, all the way to tragic disasters and literally historic triumphs on the sports field, it is a whole lot to process. So my goal today is to bring some absolute clarity and structure to this massive wave of information. We're going to break down the facts, step by step, using these visuals to help us map out exactly what is happening across the globe on this wildly eventful day of June 22nd, 2026. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the day. First, Middle East diplomacy, followed by roadblocks to peace. Then, European politics and conflict, global security and health, severe disasters, and we'll wrap up with historic sports upsets. Section 1. Middle East diplomacy, shifts in strategy. So, high-level negotiations between the United States and Iran have literally just wrapped up at the Lake Lucerne summit over in Switzerland, which was mediated by Pakistan and Qatar. Today, June 22nd, they concluded with a joint agreement establishing a brand new high-level committee to oversee the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. But the most immediate boots-on-the-ground impact happened today. U.S. Central Command confirmed the American naval blockade of Iranian ports is officially over. This is backed by a U.S. Treasury waiver that permits Iranian oil exports until August 21st. And concurrently, a completely separate deal is laying the groundwork to unfreeze some pretty substantial Iranian global assets. Now, to really understand the sheer scale of lifting that naval blockade, you've just got to look at this number, 6 million. Right now, as we speak, maritime data is tracking multiple commercial vessels, and that includes 3 massive Saudi Arabian supertankers safely carrying 6 million barrels of crude oil straight through the Strait of Hormuz. All of this is happening under heavy international monitoring, allowing a genuinely vital artery of global energy to begin flowing freely once again. And, this could drastically stabilize global gas prices. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they plan to safeguard this incredibly fragile truce. Negotiators set up some very specific implementation tracks. Step 1, the immediate activation of a direct emergency communication line right in the Persian Gulf. This is specifically designed to prevent accidental maritime military incidents, because, one misunderstanding there could unravel the whole thing. Step 2 involves establishing a joint Qatari-Pakistani facilitated deconfliction cell. Now, this cell specifically deals with Lebanon, and its whole aim is to help manage and de-escalate localized border skirmishes. These are essentially the safety nets meant to keep the broader agreements from totally collapsing. Section 2. Roadblocks to peace, friction, and leverage. Of course, the fragility of that Swiss summit was tested almost immediately by aggressive social media posts coming out of Washington. Former President Trump publicly issued a genuinely fierce warning to Tehran. He stated that if Iranian proxy forces disrupt shipping corridors or violate the terms of the agreement, the U.S. would react with devastating force, stating, quote, "You won't have a country." Now, this stark, combative rhetoric briefly brought the entire summit to a standstill, actually prompting the Iranian delegation to temporarily halt meetings before international mediators could step in and stabilize the room. But beyond the rhetoric, the structural priorities of the involved nations are just fundamentally at odds. On one side, you have Tehran demanding strict sequencing. Actually, Iran's foreign ministry confirmed they didn't even send members of their nuclear committee to Switzerland. They are drawing a hard line here. Talks are strictly about sanctions relief and border enforcement. They absolutely will not entertain nuclear constraints until the U.S. fulfills all of its upfront financial and political promises. Now, on the other side, while international cells try to organize a permanent ceasefire, Israeli and U.S. officials have reportedly reached an understanding for the Israeli Defense Forces to maintain a temporary military footprint, essentially a buffer zone, in southern Lebanon. For the U.S. and Israel, this is a strict priority designed solely to clear remaining cross-border attack infrastructure. Looking at these competing geopolitical levers shows us exactly how narrow the path to lasting peace truly is. Section 3. European politics and conflict, upheaval and devastation. Shifting our focus over to European stability, we just witnessed a completely staggering development. Keir Starmer has officially announced his resignation as Prime Minister of the UK. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this wasn't some slow, planned transition. It was the direct result of intense parliamentary pressure and some really deep fractures within his own party. Leaving with what he called good grace, he has already formally informed King Charles III, which instantly plunges a key global economy into a state of sudden leadership vacuum. While the UK navigates those political corridors, Eastern Europe continues to navigate the absolute horrors of war. The broader infrastructure devastation across Ukraine is staggering, we know that. But today we really must ground that macro-level destruction in a very specific, tragic reality. Regional military officials confirmed that a Russian overnight drone assault targeted northeastern Ukraine, striking a residential home in the city of Sumy. 3 members of a single family were killed in the strike. That includes a father, an elderly relative, and tragically a 13-year-old boy. It's just a somber, heartbreaking reminder of the daily, devastating human cost of this ongoing conflict. Section 4. Global Security and Health. Crises in Africa. Turning our attention now to the continent of Africa. An intense armed conflict just erupted at the Diori Hamani International Airport in Niamey, Niger. Islamist insurgents launched a highly coordinated mass shooting that quickly devolved into a deadly shootout with local forces. The casualties here are severe. 22 gunmen were killed alongside 11 soldiers and 2 civilians who tragically lost their lives right in the crossfire. Now, security forces did manage to regain control, and they successfully arrested 20 additional suspects directly at the scene. But the sheer scale and audacity of the attack has severely rattled regional security frameworks. Meanwhile, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, health ministries and the World Health Organization are sounding massive international biosecurity alarms because of this number right here. The spreading Ebola epidemic has now officially surged past 1,000 documented cases. Crossing this critical threshold drastically complicates the regional humanitarian aid structures. It is stretching medical resources to their absolute limits as teams on the ground fight to contain this highly lethal outbreak. Section 5. Severe disasters. The day's tragedies. Let's move to and see how this builds, because over the last 24 hours, lethal, industrial, and natural disasters have triggered massive emergency responses across 2 entirely different continents. In the Middle East, a catastrophic industrial disaster devastated the Ras Laffan industrial city in Al Khor, Qatar. A violent gas explosion sparked a massive structural fire. The toll is just devastating. 13 workers killed, 66 injured, and 18 are still missing. This has triggered a massive mobilization by the Qatari International Search and Rescue Group. Concurrently, over in the United States, an incredibly violent summer storm cell spawned a deadly tornado outbreak across the Midwest. The National Weather Service tracked 3 separate tornadoes touching down near Wichita, Kansas, Dix, Illinois, and Newburgh, Indiana. This catastrophic weather system killed 3 people, injured 5, and right now, emergency crews are currently working around the clock to rescue multiple residents trapped under collapsed homes. Section 6. Historic sports upsets. Defying the odds. Okay, we have definitely covered a lot of really heavy news today, but we are completely shifting gears right now to end on a massive high note. At the 2026 FIFA World Cup, we just witnessed a monumental group stage shocker. Cape Verde, which is one of the absolute smallest nations competing in the entire tournament, went toe-to-toe with soccer heavyweight Uruguay and actually held them to an electrifying 2-2 draw. There's no way anyone predicted that. The absolute highlight of the match, and a moment that will literally be replayed in Cape Verde for generations, came in the 21st minute. Player Kevin Pina stepped up and blasted an unbelievable free kick, scoring the very first World Cup goal in his nation's entire history. It was a massive, historic milestone, and honestly, exactly the kind of magic that makes this tournament so special. And hey, if that wasn't enough to send shockwaves through the sports world, Serena Williams accepts late Wimbledon wildcard. The legend is officially back. 44-year-old tennis icon Serena Williams has made the absolute surprise decision to accept a late singles wildcard invitation for the upcoming championships at Wimbledon. This marks her first return to professional singles tennis since the 2022 US Open. Literally, no one saw this coming, and it instantly changes the entire landscape, the buzz, and the energy of the upcoming tournament. Well, we've traveled all across the globe today, haven't we? We've looked at fragile, high-stakes peace treaties being forged in Switzerland, the abrupt fall of a prime minister in the UK, staggering health and security crises in Africa, and historic shockwaves on the courts of Wimbledon and the pitches of the World Cup. So the crucial point is this: we are living through a moment of intense, unprecedented global acceleration. As you digest all these facts and figures we talked about, ask yourself, which of these headlines, the treaties, the conflicts, or the unexpected triumphs, will have the longest-lasting impact on our tomorrows? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I highly encourage you to dive deeper into the sources behind today's global pulse. Catch you next time!